David Flatt. He's the executive director for the Ford Piquette Avenue Plant. How cool is it for you to go into work every day?
Yeah, I enjoy every day I'm here. So it's really cool coming into the place to know it was the original factory built and owned by the Ford Motor Company and get to walk the same area where Henry Ford once walked and where he helped invent the Model T. So it's very cool.
So with that, David, I have to ask you, you must be a car enthusiast, I'm
Hmm.
taking.
Yes.
So for you, like that first day on the job, what was it like?
It was very interesting because I really got rolling as soon as it came in because we were at that time a museum that was kind of up and coming and uh, busy. So that was the thing, really, even prior to the pandemic. We were on a weekend, and I started on a weekend getting a couple hundred people coming in here to tour, which was amazing. So, we were really busy, but it's neat because we have the only set of what they call early Ford letter cars on display anywhere in the world. So we draw visitors from around the world, and that's something I saw when I first got here instantly. Not only do locals come, but also from all states and then all around the world. About almost 20% of our attendance is from international visitors.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, that is so fascinating to me. And with that, too, for people who have maybe not been to the museum,
Mhm.
give us the history of the place.
Okay, so Ford Piquette Avenue Plant it was built in 1904. It was occupied by Ford until 1910. It was Studebaker from 1911 till the mid 1930s. But really, the important historical part of Ford Piquette Avenue Plant happened during the time that Ford was here. So they did make a Model A that was not the Model A that most people know of, but there was an original Model A, and that was made on Mack Avenue. But that was just a factory that it was more of a garage actually, and where they rented. Whereas Ford Piquette Avenue Plant was the first factory that was built and owned by the Ford Motor Company. And that's the one thing about it is you get to see these cars in the place where it was built. Now, it's interesting that it was the first factory to produce more than 100 cars in a day. And a lot of people might think that would have been the Model T, but it wasn't. It was the Model N, which a lot of people have no idea about Model N. Um, but in 1906, it was the number one selling car in the United States. It would probably be more famous if the Model T wouldn't have become so famous because that they built over 15 million of. However, the first 12,000 were built in Piquette. It would be later after Piquette, then they moved to Highland Park because they just ran out of space here. So this is a 402-foot long building, 67,000 square foot. But by the end of Ford's time here at Piquette, they were stacking cars out in the parking lot because they just couldn't move them fast enough because they had so many they're having to build. And this is part of Milwaukee Junction, so there's two train lines that intersect here, and so that's why Ford chose this location because he could negotiate the best shipping price, so he didn't have to just do what the one train company wanted, and so that was very beneficial for him. But eventually, he just outgrew this spot. It's a mill style factory, and it's a beautiful piece of architecture even by itself. Now attached to us is a slightly newer construction, which would date to the Studebaker era, and that was an Albert Kahn building that's 110,000 square foot. So we're quite a large complex when you see us.
Uh, and so with that, Dave, if I can ask you, how did it become a museum?
Okay, so in 1999, there were some tenants in the building, including General Lennon. It was owned by a family, and they were actually going to get tax credits to level the building and turn it into storage. And
Oh, could
so
you
that's,
imagine?
yeah. And well, and that's the thing about it is a lot of people, that's the thing with historical buildings. Once you destroy them, they're gone forever. You can't, even if you try to rebuild something like that, it's never the same. Whereas this is the original building. So we're lucky that it was able to be kept. Now, at that time, a lot of the windows were knocked out. There were birds in the building and everything. So the first thing is they had to secure that and redo some of the windows. So what it was is a group with, it'd be Jerry Mitchell. He was a Dr. Jerry Mitchell. So he was a professor at Wayne State University. he and some other concerned citizens, including Henry Ford Heritage Association, they stepped in and were able to purchase the building from the previous owner. And then at that time, they turned it into a 501c3 nonprofit on its own. And later were able to transition to a museum once they kind of started to fix it up a little bit. And they started giving tours a few years after saving the building, but then it's really been over the past 10 or 11 years where they started getting a lot more tours. And then before the pandemic, like in 2018, we had 31,000 visitors. In 2019, we had 32,000 visitors. It was interesting in 2020, the January and February were both record months for us right before the pandemic. So we were on track probably to hit 35 or 40,000 visitors. So now it's just trying to get transitioned back to that.
Because with that too, we should point out that you are a nonprofit. So
Yeah, that's right.
I would anticipate the more visitors, the more help support the museum and
Absolutely.
your efforts.
Yeah, that's very true. And we're also one of the top ranked event venues in the state of Michigan. So before the pandemic, we were having a wedding here every Saturday, usually up to 250 people. We were booked out 2 years. So there were quite a waiting list for people to get in here.
Because I will say, what an amazing backdrop, right?
It is. Yeah, and that's the thing. It's a great backdrop, especially for people looking for a destination type wedding. It's ideal for that. We were even ranked the #1 destination wedding venue in Michigan by the Learning Channel in 2019. And we've received a number of other rewards too. And that's the thing is that we make a lot of money, or we bring in a lot of revenue from ticket sales, but also having all the events also bringing a lot of revenue and help keep the museum open. And then during the pandemic, we had to transition to, for a long time, we couldn't do any events. And then we didn't have any tours either for quite some time. And then gradually we could start to do some limited tours on, time tickets where we limited the number of people on a tour. So for a while, there was only 10 people who could tour. Events we could only, even when we started to do them, we could only do what we call a pop-up wedding, where there would be 10 people at the wedding, and these are people who previously had tried to book a wedding for 150, 200 people. Now they had to cut it back to 10 people. So that was interesting, but we made it work.
So I will say, Dave, I have to say, thinking about some of these brides planning these weddings.
Yeah.
And then having this, I'm just sorry for you and your staff, because I'm sure there were a lot of tears and a lot of frustration.
And I have to give a lot of credit to my staff, because they did a good job on being able to transition to be able to do those smaller weddings. And then for people who didn't want to do that, who still wanted to have the bigger wedding, most of them didn't cancel. What they did is they just pushed back their date. But what it has meant now too is that going here forward, especially when we get farther into the summer, we're going to have some weeks where we have days where we have back-to-back weddings. Instead of having the one wedding per week, it's double weddings. But it's just means more on the staff. But at least these couples will still be able to enjoy their day here, which is good.
So with that too, we're talking with David Flatt. He's the executive director for the Ford Piquette Avenue Plant. And with that, David, if I can ask you, the mask mandate, it's so confusing right now. And we're confused as regular citizens. As someone in your position, how are you addressing the situation now, especially when we're talking about some of the events and the weddings?
Yeah, and the thing that we've done is that we're finding that most people are still continuing to wear their mask. I'm not going to require to see a vaccination card, but what I do is I have masks at the museum, and I'll show you one of them right here. So what is Ford Motor Company actually donated thousands of masks to us when this all started, and we have them available right at the museum. And when I have the tour groups together, so we still limiting the number of tours and the number of people on a tour and still following social distancing, we're finding that most people on the tour will still have the mask. Now we do get some people that have come in and do a self-guided, and since the changes, there's been for the most part, they're still wearing them, but there's been a couple of people that haven't, but they kind of go on their own. So that's kind of the best way I can have been able to deal with it. We still provide sanitation stations throughout the museum. We do regular cleaning. We do far more cleaning now even than we did before the pandemic. So I feel like that helps. I think the public sees that and respects that. And most people understand when they come in here too. You're in an indoor setting, so they're going to follow that. Now there is still restrictions on the weddings too, to where we still can't do the big weddings like we would normally be doing, like with the 250 people. So we're doing only very small weddings still. That is something that will open up more though this summer is anticipated.
Fingers crossed. With us
Yeah.
here on the MegaCast, David Flatt, he's the executive director for the Ford Piquette Avenue Plant. I will say, going into summer, talking about the summer, we know typically it brings so many car enthusiasts into
Right.
the area, especially with the Woodward Dream Cruise. We saw a lot of these events officially close last year, but M1 Concourse has kind of stepped in to fill that gap. Do you anticipate that this is going to be a busy summer because car enthusiasts are going to come back?
Yeah, I do anticipate we'll have a busy summer. And I know we actually have an event on the day of Woodward Dream Cruise Super Roll, which joins up with that. We've actually even added some different types of events that we hadn't had in the past, including some vendor fairs, art fairs, craft fairs. And so those type of events have been bringing in a large number of people who get a chance to see the museum. We include some mini tours with that. We're even going to be bringing some late night tours and some with extended hours. And so I think that's another way where we're trying to appeal to those people who maybe can't fit to our regular schedule. Because right now we're Thursday through Sunday. We always have a tour at noon and 2. Sometimes on the weekend we have a 10 a.m. tour, but it depends on if I can get enough staff to. We used to be open on Wednesdays also, and right now we're not, but that's something that we might add back if we become more busy this summer. So it's kind of a wait and see game on that part of it.
So, with that too, you are a nonprofit, and so many nonprofits have been struggling because it's been hard to get donations and do some of these events that are the big fundraisers. How are you standing in that area?
So what I ended up having to do was, instead of doing like a big gala type fundraiser, what I've transitioned to are these art fairs and craft fairs. And we've had a couple art fairs, and I run a silent auction during that. And I opened them to where they're free to the public to attend these fairs, but then just ask for a donation. And I have found that on average, most people are very generous. So for somebody who gives $1, there's gonna be somebody else that gives $10, you know? So in the end of the night, still, it's very profitable. And then also we have a good membership. So whenever I have done limited fundraiser or do a silent auction, they've been good about participating in those. And so that's helped carry us through.
I do like that. I will say, for me, when I go on some of these tours, the guided tours are really where I feel like you get the flavor
Yes.
of the place that you're trying to visit and get that history. But you just mentioned the art fairs. I know you have some coming up. What type of artist are you looking for, and what to try to attract people?
Right. And so I can tell you, we have a wide variety of artists. And that's saying I still have vendor slots available, and there's still tickets available for these shows. Our next one's going to be July 11th. Actually, it's going to be on a Sunday, but it's art, including ceramics, painting, illustration, photography, sculpture, metalwork, woodwork, kind of all across the board on different types of art, which is really cool thing because it's your chance to see art. And some of it's automotive themed, but not everything. So, and it's all price ranges. There's everything from extremely affordable to high end. So you'll see all kinds of different stuff when you come in here. And it's over, like this last event, we actually had almost 40 vendors in the building. But it's, like I said, we had a 67,000 square foot building. So it's spread throughout the whole building. So it's nice. It's never crowded in any one area. It's a safe experience, and had really good positive feedback about these type of events.
And so with that too, if I can ask you, what's it been like trying to attract some of these vendors? Are they eager because they've been sitting around for the past
They
year?
want something to do. Yeah. And the thing is, that's like, even with the number of art vendors I had this last event, and it was May 6th, So besides the 40 vendors that attended, I had another 30 that were on a waiting list. So that's why I even decided to do the one in July, is because there was such good response to this one in May. And so some of them that then weren't able to participate in the previous one, they signed right up for the next one. So there was definitely no shortage of vendors and who wants to participate. Like I said, we still have spaces available. So if anybody wants to contact me to inquire, then glad to do that. And we do time ticketing for those vendor events, but it's also possible to come there that day and just make a donation at the door as well. We just try to do that to get an idea of how many people are going to attend.
So with that, Dave Flatt with us here on the MegaCast, Executive Director for the Ford Piquette Avenue Plant in downtown Detroit. Where can people get tickets for some of these upcoming events? What's the general price range as well?
Yeah, so the way it is on the events like the art fair and the craft fair, also we have Model T birthday on September 26th. So all these events are free. You can reserve a free ticket through Eventbrite. You can also make a small donation for a ticket or make a donation just at the door. Now for our pricing for museum tours, it's $15 for adults, $10 for seniors and students, $5 for youth, 4 and under are free.
Hey, Dave, too, before we let you go,
Mhm.
what are some of the coolest cars there?
Okay, well, so to me, probably the coolest car just is the Model B, because there's only 6 or 7 of those left in the world. The one we have is serial number 1. So
No,
yeah, so it's the one car you can be pretty well sure that Henry Ford probably sat in that car. Which
that
is
is
really
so
neat
cool.
thing.
Oh, so go ahead. Just between you and I,
Yeah.
have you sat in the car and taken a selfie?
No, not that one. No, we have a Model T though that is available. It's a photo car where people can get pictures, and actually you'll see a lot of pictures that show up like on our Facebook and other people that will share that, because our Facebook following now has grown to 33,000 people, which is incredible, because 3 years ago when I started it was 3,000. So that just
Wow.
shows you our growth over the past few years. Yep.
Well,
And
I
the model,
anticipate it's going to continue to grow.
yeah, I hope so. Yeah, I think it will.
David Flatt with us here, Executive Director for the Ford Piquette Avenue Plant Museum. Please take time, go down and view our history. It really is
Mhm.
history. You're so lucky to work there.
Yeah, history and the architecture here is beautiful as well. So I think there's something for everybody to see. And also it's a good tour for all age groups. We have a great group of docents or tour guides, and they all tell a different story. So each day there's a different tour guide here. So it's even good to come back on different days.
Well, we so appreciate your time and we wish you the best of luck, continued success as we start to emerge from this pandemic, we
Mhm.
hope.
Thank you, Ronnie.